After posting my roast video about Time of the Doctor, a lot of people have been complaining that all of my questions were answered within the episode and that I needed to watch it again. So I did exactly that. I watched Time of the Doctor again, and as it turns out, they were absolutely wrong. All of my questions were not answered within the episode, and since everyone wanted to just keep telling me that they were, in this video I'm going to point out which of my 23 original questions were answered. Number 1. Why is the town called Christmas? After watching this for the second time, I realized that Clara voiced the same question, for which the Doctor responds with, I don't know, why is an island called Easter? Well, Easter Island was named that because the first European explorer to discover it did so on Easter Sunday. So does that mean that the town of Christmas was founded on Christmas Day? I suppose so, but damn, does every planet we visit have to be inhabited with descendants of Earth? Number 2, the Time Lords and the cracks. Okay, apparently the Time Lords did not create the cracks. They're just exploiting one to find their way back to their proper universe. Alright, that makes sense, but everyone seems to keep avoiding the implications of Series 5. And I've already mentioned this before. When the Doctor flew the Pandorica into the exploding TARDIS, he was erased from existence and all memory of him was purged. I'm actually paraphrasing River Song there. Okay, so if the Doctor never existed, then no TARDIS was ever stolen from Gallifrey. And if no TARDIS was ever stolen from Gallifrey, then no TARDIS ever exploded. And if no TARDIS ever exploded, there's no crack! Now, the Doctor describes the crack in the tower as a kind of scar tissue. Again, this would make sense if Moffat had not included that erased from existence bit in Series 5. There shouldn't be any scar tissue because there's no cracks. Now, if we say that after Amy magically remembers the Doctor back into existence, the explosion still happened, then how is the universe still there? Look at me, I'm looking in the camera when I make a valid point. So really, no matter how you slice it, the crack on Trenzalore should not be there. The other question I had regarding the cracks was who Prisoner Zero was in the 11th hour. Now, most everyone I've discussed this with has stated that whatever lies behind the crack is relative to the crack's position in our dimension. Initially, this sounds pretty logical. However, if that's true, then how was the Doctor able to grab a piece of the TARDIS out of one of the cracks in cold blood? That's not where the TARDIS was exploding according to the Big Bang. It was in orbit around the Earth. And it's still in this dimension, so it still doesn't make sense. Besides, if we use the relative position logic, it still doesn't explain how Prisoner Zero, a native of a different dimension, had prior knowledge of the phrase, silence will fall. Number 4, regarding the Doctor recalling the TARDIS after sending Clara home. On this one, I did miss it, because the Doctor says that he may want to leave someday. What's funny about that is that all these fanboys that were claiming that all of my questions were answered within the episode were frantically trying to explain this one by saying that the Doctor recalled his TARDIS out of concern that Clara might return. So, you people didn't even catch the Doctor's reasoning. Clara surviving, clinging to the outside of the TARDIS wasn't actually explained on screen, but the Doctor does question why she isn't dead. I can agree with everyone's explanation here that the TARDIS was trying to shrug off Harkness. However, I still don't understand why the TARDIS showed favoritism towards Clara. Imagine what it thinks of Rose. She ripped open the console with a wrecker. The Doctor also expressly says that he bought handles at a market and that all of the biological components were removed. The Doctor also states that the Time Lords were responsible for the truth field. Okay, the turkey being placed underneath the console to cook it. Let me see if I read this right. The turkey is placed in the time winds, and that somehow accelerates the turkey along its own timeline to shorten the time it takes to bake it. So does that mean that the turkey being baked is like a fixed point? Because if you accelerate the turkey along its own timeline, wouldn't it just rot in a few minutes? That's it. I originally had 23 complaints with this episode, and a second viewing has resolved only 8 of them. So we're still left with 15 unanswered. I'm not going to restate those because I did in my other video. However, watching it a second time, I did note several more questions that I neglected to mention in my last video. Such as, I mentioned the wooden Cyberman, but what I didn't mention was that he was armed with a flamethrower. Talk about ignoring basic logic. Why in Rassilon's name would the Cybermen think that was a good idea? To arm an infiltrator made entirely of a combustible material with a flamethrower. Besides, where did they even get the wood? So after the Doctor receives his new regeneration cycle, the Time Lords are obviously convinced that they found the correct universe. So after the Doctor regenerates and conveniently wipes out all the baddies, why didn't they just return? Why are Cybermen, Sontarans, and all these other species interested in reviving the Time War? Most of them suffered in one way or another as a result of the Time War, so why would they be interested in starting a new one? Too many questions and not enough answers. I noticed more shaky cam around this time too. Oh, and I'm still not okay with the fact that we owe the next 50 years of Doctor Who to Clara Oswald. How embarrassing. Hopefully this is all that can be said about this episode. I haven't changed my opinion about the episode being a mess because there was just way too much continuity overlooked for the sake of this story in particular working. I know that a lot of my complaints were unfounded, but as I've just demonstrated, most of them weren't. If you like this video, be sure to like this video. You can also share it on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, StumbleUpon, wherever you're having a discussion about Time of the Doctor, or maybe you like discussing discontinuity in Doctor Who. You can also subscribe to my channel because I will be posting more videos in the future regarding Doctor Who before Series 8 starts. I'm actually tossing around the idea about doing like 5 or 10 predictions for Series 8, and I've still got to do my review of Day of the Doctor. I noticed more shaky fuck. I noticed more shaky shaky cam. Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Sound check, 1, 2, 3. And here it is.